Hey guys, I hope you're doing well and I hope that you're keeping safe. So, I recently got the Sony A7C, which is actually a full frame camera. And based on my experience so far, based on how easily I have been able to use it, I'm making a short video. I actually took notes, like there are like 6 pages, close to 6 pages, but don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of that. I'll keep it short and I'll try to give you as much as information as possible. So, to begin with, I already have the iPhone 10, which is almost 4 years old by now, but it's a pretty fantastic phone. So, even today, when I shoot pictures outside with friends and everybody else, it's like, hey, dude, the pictures on your phone are so good, right? Because that is true. Outside, in the daylight or in the shade, when there is good light, the portraits are fantastic, the photos are fantastic, and when there is good light, the video is also fantastic. Nothing short phenomenal. But the question then comes like, if my phone is this good, do I need to buy a camera? Right? So we'll answer this in four pieces. The first thing is don't underestimate the power of software, right? So obviously, I keep thinking of this. What if these major camera manufacturers like Canon or Sony or Fujifilm, what if their hardware is integrated with just the camera software of Apple's, right? Because we have seen how fantastic their software is. It just helps. It just. I just wonder sometimes, like, how great would it be if we just use their software and their hardware? It would be a masterpiece of a product. So the lens used in these smartphones is very small. Of course, in 13 Pro, the lens is much bigger. However, the photos are still fantastic. I think this is something similar to how Apple is able to pull off devices, although they have a smaller RAM, lesser RAM, but their devices are functioning so fast. We are not exactly sure of what the computational photography actually does, but it's probably something similar to it because the software is helping the lens a lot. It's not just it's not just the hardware. So even with the small lens, smartphone cameras are able to pull out amazing pictures, right? So as opposed to shooting on a DSLR or a mirrorless. So right now, even with a huge sensor, even with a larger sensor, you still end up spending time making edits. You need to have a good experience with some editing software, say Lightroom or Final Cut. You end up doing color corrections, but on an iPhone, for example, the pictures are brilliant, and by brilliant I mean brilliant. The pictures are bright and they are social media ready. They are Instagram ready, Facebook ready, or wherever you're posting. And the second piece that we were looking at is the lens in these cameras, they have a wide aperture. So right now, I think in the 13 Pro, the primary camera has an aperture of 1.5, which is a very wide aperture. And the kit lenses that usually come with the mirrorless and DSLR cameras is probably 4, or even the number goes north of 4. So the aperture itself is very small. So that lets in less amount of light. Of course, the sensor is very big and relatively, I mean, it's still good enough and you can bump up the ISO and everything, but still, the aperture is wide enough, means the f number is small, so it's a wider aperture allowing in more light. I won't get more technical than that. So, this allows them, because they're letting in more light, it allows these smartphone cameras to shoot at a very low ISO, like 67 or so, but even with a good shutter speed, that is. But in these cameras, because it's an f-stop of 4 or higher, so you end up cranking up the ISO. These guys, these mirrorless and DSLR cameras, they can take high ISO, but there is always a benefit of shooting in lower ISOs. Even though these guys can take, say, 1600 or so, in my experience, I have found the image to be much clearer on an ISO of 100 than an ISO of 500 or so. right? Even with the same shutter speed. So ISO does matter. Yes, you can crank it up. That's a different story. But lower the ISO, especially when there is good enough light to shoot it, the lower the better. Okay, so that's one thing with smartphone cameras. And coming to low light, right? Even with low light performance these days, we have night mode. So what night mode essentially is doing is it's reducing the shutter speed by a lot of time. So right now, say we are shooting at a shutter speed of 50, they're reducing it like 50 times, 150 times, because the shutter speed is going to be 1 second or 3 seconds. So the shutter is going to be open for a whole 3 seconds. So that allows in a lot of light. So how's this helping? Right? So when there is low light, when there is more light coming into the camera, obviously you can shoot better, right? So that's how it works. And it's definitely useful, but the thing is, you really can't pull it off with all sorts of objects. Say, for example, you're photographing your pet. That's not going to work because with that low of a shutter speed, your animal is just going to be moving and you can't get a clear picture. It's going to be blurred, that's all. And say, for example, you're shooting things handheld, right? Even then, that's not going to work because because your hand will have a little bit of movement, even, and when the shutter speed is so low, obviously you will trigger some movement. Of course, you can put in the timer and everything, but that's a different story. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, the option is there. You can reduce the shutter speed, allow in more light, take good low light pictures as well. So, with these three factors, does getting a camera still matter? Now, in the fourth point, let us see where the camera shines. We have seen that with phones, you can take fantastic video, fantastic photographs. Why do you even need a camera, right? High-end phones like iPhones and maybe some other Samsung phones as well, they are just knocking it out of the park, right? With their wonderful software. In lower lighting conditions, they have night mode, which makes things easy. The camera, at the end of the day, it really shines. It shines everywhere. It shines outside. You can take fantastic pictures outside. You can take fantastic pictures inside. And I think indoor lighting conditions and lower lighting conditions is where a camera really shines. Because in these conditions, the phone sensors, because they are small in size, they don't allow in that much of light. Hence, the camera sensor, which is larger in size, because indoor and lower lighting conditions, right? So it is able to capture more light than that of a phone. So a camera really shines in these two situations. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, do I need this much of power for my Instagram, for my YouTube, Facebook? Because most of the time, people, I don't think on Instagram and everywhere else, they zoom in your pictures and look at them. They're just gonna scroll through, double tap, double tap, double tap, double tap. That's all, nothing more. So, that is one thing that you want to look at before you make a decision. And the other thing is, when you're buying a phone, right? And also remember, guys, when you're buying a phone, you don't get just the phone, you get the phone, you get the camera, and you also get a gaming console. And coming to the question of the hour, right? Should I get a DSLR or a mirrorless camera or not? Well, the answer to this is not going to be a completely straightforward one because it really comes down to two things. One, do you already have a good phone that you are happy with its performance? Then it's fine if you go for a camera. And the second thing, of course, is budget. Now, if there is enough budget to, just get one of these two things, I would recommend that you just get the phone. And remember, when you're getting a camera, it's not just the camera, guys, that you're going to be buying because the body is not enough. You will be investing some money in a couple of good lenses as well. Or you might be getting a good workhorse lens. So, and lenses do not come cheap. So, factor in all these items when you're making the decision. And honestly, guys, that's all I have for you today. And I hope I helped you make a decision, or at least hope I helped you make the decision a little bit less tough. Thank you very much for watching and have a fantastic day and a great week ahead.